Before there was a Cuyahoga Valley Youth Ballet, there was a dream that children in the arts, like children in sports, ought to be able to have a chance to perform for an audience. As Miss Nan puts it, you can teach a kid to put a ball in the basket, but that doesn't mean he can play basketball. One is technique and the other is playing the game. In 1970, the New York City Ballet was scheduled to appear at Blossom Music Center. It had been open just 2 years, but the summer home of the Cleveland Orchestra would host Midsummer's Night's Dream. David Richardson, children's ballet master of City Ballet, came to town for 2 weeks to train 16 young ballerinas to be the bugs in the production. Not only were many of Nan Klinger's students involved in the show, but when David left town, he left Nan in charge of rehearsing the children. Now, this was the one and only time that Blossom would play host to George Balanchine. Nan knew that one principal dancer with City Ballet, Kelsey Kirkland, was just 16 years old, and Nan found inspiration in that fact.
You know, a great many of his dancers were teenagers at that time. And so I thought, yeah, I can do that. I can have the children learn to perform. And I felt performing is not necessarily, you can be the world's greatest ballet technician in a classroom and a big zero on the stage. And I feel one has really very little to do with the other.
There was a gestation period that followed. Nan was 45 years old and had 6 children at home, but then on April 20th of 1975, Nan held the first auditions for children 9 years old and up, and one of CVYB's traditions was begun. Vladimir Dokudovsky, a former principal with Ballet Russe and a teacher with Ballet Arts Carnegie Hall, was the outsider who presided over the trials. On September 10th, 1975, the Cuyahoga Valley Youth Ballet was incorporated. Nan drew inspiration for the name from the brand new Cuyahoga Valley National Recreation Area that had just celebrated its 25th anniversary last year. The company's first performance in December 1976 was for the Weathervane Board of Women. In its first review, the president of the Women's Board gave the CVYB its first rave. The first ballet to be choreographed for the company became one of Nan's own, Ballet School to the music of Chopin. The second ballet was Sunflower to Glazunov. This is Tammy Klinger-Stamets. Tammy recalls those first years of the company.
Back when we first started, it was pretty much my mother. Did just about everything. I mean, there was certainly support, but it wasn't an organized board. It wasn't, organized positions or jobs or whatever. My mom just said, "Hey, Joe, can you help with this?" And he did, but it was really my mom ran everything, pretty much did it all.
In 1976, Nan asked Dokudovsky to set an original ballet on the company. This tradition would always distinguish CVYB, original ballets by choreographers from New York most often for child audiences. On March 26, 1977, the premiere of Peter and the Wolf, an original ballet with original costumes. Mia Klinger-Welch was a member of the company.
I remember our first ballet that we really had costumes for was Peter and the Wolf, and the costumes came back to my mother the day before the show, and they were very plain and not to her standards, and she needed to add to them. So she stayed up most of the evening, throughout the night, sewing the costumes to make them up to her standards, and we performed the ballet the next day.
As artistic director, Nan was joined by Dokudovsky and teacher Liz Butler that first season. And the very first season was at Cuyahoga Falls High School. And as you take a look at this old program, you'll see that the tickets were $1.50 for students and $3.50 for adults. And then for the 1978 season, Dokudovsky created Girls' School. This was performed at Our Lady of the Elms High School with one of the other ballets. The Girls' School Ballet was played with Friendship, and that was a ballet choreographed by Nan Klinger to the music of Scott Joplin. Then in 1979, Nan enlisted a former principal of New York City Ballet, John Prinz, to offer Akron its first original, Nutcracker. Prinz was introduced to Nan through daughter Kim. Act Two of the Tchaikovsky piece also marked the first performance of CVYB at the Akron Civic Theater at Thanksgiving of 1979. The company had 36 dancers, and now parents were doing more of the production, the costumes, the sets. The budget for the production was $10,000, and it was raised in nickels and dimes, as President Ten Flory put it. The repertoire was next enhanced by the Enchanted Toy Shop, choreographed by Nan for the 1980 season. It also permitted Nan to indulge her other passion, designing original costumes for the ballet. This time the company performed at E.J. Thomas Hall, Rolling Acres Mall, the Center for the Deaf in Cleveland, and the Children's Concert Society. In 1981, Nan had encouraged David Richardson to return to Akron to choreograph his first ballet, The Birthday Wish. And this was the one and only time that we know of where CVYB did a commercial endorsement for Coca-Cola Bottling Company of Akron. Have a dance and a Coke, I guess. Birthday Wish was a 16th birthday party set in the late 19th century, the period of Tchaikovsky's music. And from the Balanchine tradition, David designed movements capable by young dancers, interesting to the audience. The premiere performance in the fall of 1981 was at Akron Civic Theater, a memorable experience for dancer Doreen Esposito-Osman, who is now an elementary school principal in Lakewood. Doreen?
I remember when David Richardson first came to the studio, we were in awe because this is somebody from New York, and he came and brought us to almost a different level, not really in our dance, but in our minds and in our psychological approach of how we appeared and how we thought about ballet.
From the very beginning, Nan made a commitment to taking ballet to children in school, mostly because Nan understood parents didn't take their children to ballet. Doreen also remembers that these early companies performed one day each month for 8 months, 4 schools per day, 32 schools a season. Nan did develop a relationship with Children's Concert Society that provided to the CVYB its first paying gig. It's an important part of the tradition of CVYB, and it's continued for 25 years. The studios on State Road are familiar, of course, to all of us who've joined the company since Nan and Frank moved to their present location in April 1989. The studios with the Marley floor are spacious to those who came before, especially to the early company members who remember the basement at Lawson's on Portage Trail.
Remember that on occasion we'd walk in and some of the stuff from above the refrigerator was dripping onto our dance floor, and my dad was pretty handy in getting buckets to put on our ceiling to catch the drips. So it was a pretty interesting place to dance in. The ceilings were sort of low, so I think some of the boy dancers could probably hit the buckets with their hands as they jumped.
There was probably no single project that ever taxed the company more than the Cuyahoga Valley Youth Ballet's trip to the International Children's Festival in Taiwan. Here's some memories preserved by Gail Noble as the company gets to the airport and gets on board the plane by way of Detroit. And parents, of course, accompanied everybody there. We also had a special group in Uncle Bill Church and Uncle Tom Hardy. They stopped after Detroit for their first stop in Korea. Incidentally, the whole Voice Tell project came out of this experience when we did reports to keep people back home informed as to what's going on. They arrived in Taipei and had an opportunity to look around Taiwan a little bit. Michael Byers accompanied the company. There's Bev and Kathy looking the mean streets of Taipei. There was a news conference shortly after their arrival that Tom and Michael Byers and Nan participated in to celebrate the fact that this American company had come to Taiwan to perform. They had a chance to look at the palace and the countryside around Taiwan, and all of these dancers and parents had an opportunity, of course, too, to try out lots of new foods that they hadn't tried before. But thank God McDonald's was there at times, huh? The theaters in Taipei, the Sun Yat-sen Hall, also in Hsinchu, Kaohsiung, Saichung. And here's a guest dancer that was enlisted as you-know-what during the part of the ballet. Carnival was on the repertoire then. They took their bows and met the audience afterwards and established a great rapport and a great experience for both the dancers, the parents, and of course the people of Taiwan